Hello, good morning. I hope that everybody's well and that you've had a good week. First of all, I would like to say a big thank you to everybody who has sent their well wishes about the boys. I don't know why they got kennel cough. My dogs are vaccinated against it, but the vet says you can still get it. And in fact, when Bertie was a puppy and he had his first rounds of vaccinations, he actually got kennel cough from the kennel cough vaccine. I think probably the vaccine has helped them get over it quicker. They had a few days where it was just awful seeing them, but they really have bounced back. They're very frustrated that they can't go out doing the things that they normally do, because obviously kennel cough is very contagious, but towards the end of this forthcoming week we can start to swing back into our normal routine. It's been very strange doing things without them. Normally my dogs come with me wherever I go and whatever I do. I've actually eaten out in a restaurant this week without them. It did mean that I could wear tidy clothes, because normally I have to dress as if it didn't matter if they slobber or get hair on me. But there we are. It's been a funny old week. I have not really done much stitching at all. I've got 2 stitching sessions in on Mary, and this is what she's looking like at the moment. There are more motifs to go here and here and here. This little girl really covered her fabric well. I've got to put some apples in there, but then that one side will be complete. She's a very different little sampler. I love the swan. Very pretty. And of course very, very Christmassy. I've just been so busy this week doing other things, and I think as well that as we are getting our lives back to normal, I haven't got so much time to spend on needlework. And of course, if I'm out in the day where I should be working on hats things, then I've got to work on hats things in the evenings, which then cuts out my stitching time. But there we are. Mary is growing slowly, but I've got to finish her because I've got a lovely sampler all charted waiting for me to start to stitch. I finished charting a beautiful sampler this week. This is the colour palette. Isn't that a beautiful palette of colours? I really love this run in particular. This is a reproduction of a sampler that was stitched, I think off the top of my head, 1832. It's a red house sampler. Now, the colour linen that would match the original is this one, and this is Lakeside linen vintage exemplar, and that's a really beautiful dye lot. But myself and the lady who's going to stitch the model have been talking about this linen, which is old linen from ex-Duca's Designs, and both of us really love this linen, and I've just been waiting for the right project to come along to stitch on this linen, and we both feel that these colours will just be fabulous against this linen. And we are deliberating what we're going to do. Like obviously this is a reproduction, and if we do go with the old linen, we will specify on the actual booklet what the linen true to the original should be. Very interested to hear your views about linen choices and colours, and do you like to stitch with the original colour of linen, or do you like to make your own choices when it comes to colours of linen? Very interested to hear your views. Okay, so This week we released the fabulous Jane Hopkins. This is such a flamboyant sampler. You know, once seen, never forgotten, this vase of flowers. So beautiful. You know, these flowers are just so, I don't know, they just sort of tumble over this vase. Very, very beautiful. I think working this sampler, you couldn't do it without a smile on your face. It's just so beautiful. Now, the sampler was charted by Sandra, and we kept this in Australia, and Leona Sweeney stitched the sampler for us. Leona has stitched some amazing samplers for hats, and she's very much part of our team. The stitches used in Jane are just cross stitch over 2, and there are some satin stitches in the border. These are just groupings of satin stitches. Very, very pretty. Very, very pretty indeed. Now, we know that Jane Hopkins stitched her sampler in 1875, and this sampler is a Welsh sampler. We bought this in auction a little while ago, and the auction took place in Cardiganshire. No, it didn't. It took place in Carmarthenshire. I always get confused with the counties in Wales, even though I am Welsh. Just check that. No, yes, Carmarthenshire. But we could not find any Jane Hopkins in Carmarthenshire, but instead we could find 4 Janes in Glamorganshire. We can't say which of the Janes it is, but we have written in the booklet, setting sort of like the background scene for each of the Janes that she could possibly be. It was a lovely booklet to put together. My Welsh heritage meant that I was very familiar with the areas that I was writing about, having been to them and spent time in each of the areas, and growing up in Wales, especially in the South Wales valleys, the mining valleys, you really get to understand the plight of the working man in Wales. The Welsh people and the immigrants that came from Ireland and Scotland to work in the mines and the iron works, the steel works. You know, you grow up knowing about their suffering, and I think as well that the Welsh people, they're very warm-hearted, real sense of community, and the Welsh people, you know, they love their song. The Welsh valleys are very green and beautiful, and I feel all of those things in Jane's sampler. There are 32 colours in Jane's sampler, so this is a beautiful, rich palette for you to work with. And Krista Gramer of Just Stitching Along is going to stitch Jane, and she has already pulled the DNC colours. And Krista described these colours as a rainbow. And I said to her, it's like Joseph's Technicolor, amazing Technicolor Dreamcoat. Beautiful, beautiful colours. Now, we used Soie d'Alger for the model, but in the booklet we provide a conversion for Soie 103 and for DMC. I was just trying to think about the linen that we used. It was, I believe, Sanju. That's the linen that we used for this sampler. Yes, I knew I'd written it down. Vintage Sanju. being dyslexic, sometimes when I look at a block of writing, it's all jumbled up and moving, so it takes me a little while to read things sometimes. So we use vintage sand dune, and that's always been one of my favourite colours. This sampler is suitable for needleworkers of all abilities, and I think that you will have great fun stitching her, and she is certainly going to be a very different sampler for your sampler wall. This sampler. This is the first time that I'm showing this sampler, but for those of you that follow Traditional Stitches and have watched their YouTube video this week would have seen Esther. This is Esther Blackwood. This is a limited edition booklet, and it is exclusive to Traditional Stitches. This sampler is the follow-on sampler for the Anne Morrison Stitch Along. Now, originally it was planned that I would be attending Traditional Stitches this year to teach a workshop. Well, of course, because of COVID, that was never, going to be feasible. So we decided that a lovely way to sort of round off that year of celebrations for Traditional Stitches, as we couldn't do the workshop, was to have another limited edition exclusive release for Traditional Stitches. Now, this sampler was chosen because it was stitched in Mrs. Devine's school in Quebec. A Canadian sampler for a Canadian store celebrating 20 years in business. The sampler was purchased in Canada, and it was stitched by a Canadian model stitcher. Angela Bullback stitched this for us. She also stitched Anne Morrison as well, so it's sort of keeping it in the same sort of family almost. Now, Esther is a very distinctive sampler. She has some very, very beautiful elements to her. Some of these sort of dividing rows are so pretty, and I know that Angela really enjoyed stitching them. Very, very pretty. I love that dog. And the little sort of scenes of castle ruins and cottages. Very, very pretty. So many lovely things in this sampler. And the colours are very pretty as well. Now I'm going to put this down. This frame is so heavy. Now, Esther chose the verse, "Love God with all your heart and soul, with all your strength and mind, and love your neighbours as yourself, be faithful, just and kind." Isn't that a wonderful sort of thing to live your life by? Love God with all your heart and soul, with all your strength and mind, and love your neighbours as yourself, be faithful, just and kind. I love it, very much so. Now, let's tell you about Esther. Now, the booklet hasn't been printed yet, so I can't read from the booklet. I've got to read from some notes. Esther stitched a sampler with cross stitch over 2, with the exception of a little row of satin stitches in a sort of border. So, if you wanted to stitch this on Ada, you would just need to leave off this little row here, and I don't think that would have any sort of impact on the appearance of the sampler at all. Janice at Traditional Stitches is offering this sampler with Ada and in varying different counts of linen. She uses 26 colours, and it's a beautiful rainbow of colours. I love the little touches, the darker touches in this sampler, alongside the sort of beautiful, sort of fruity, mouth-watering colours as well. It's a really lovely contrast. Now, Canada is not my area of expertise. It's on my bucket list to visit, but it's a country that I really do not know a lot about, and I was very kindly helped with the research on this sampler by some Canadian needleworkers, and my particular thanks goes to Dina, who did manage to find out a lot of information about Esther. So she's found a divine listed in a Quebec directory from 1854 as a teacher living on King Street, and this is in the St. Roch district of Quebec. And the Blackwood family was living there at the same time. Now, we know that Esther was actually born Marie Esther Blackwood in 1843 in Quebec, and she was the only child of Irish Catholic immigrants William Blackwood and Anne Lawler. Now, the Catholic background, there are hints of it in the sampler, with possibly the crosses, although maybe I shouldn't say that, because obviously, you know, the cross is in all Christian religions, but, you know, there's something very Catholic about this one in particular. It's sort of very reminiscent of the little prayer cards that you get in Sunday school, and you know, you can buy from the little shops in the church to go into your prayer books. Okay, so her father was a trader stroke peddler, and he died suddenly in 1863 at the age of 45. And 5 months later, Esther married, and I hope I get this right, André Boucher dit Morency, a French-Canadian wood turner. And apparently dit, D-I-T, is the French equivalent of also known as. They have 2 children in 2 years, and then moved to the United States, first to Maine, where a second son is born, and then to Massachusetts, where, except for a brief time in Rhode Island, they settle and have many more children. And the family name becomes anglicised to Morency. Mary and Andrew, as their names appear in official US records, have 13 children in total, although only 8 live long enough to be registered at birth. 3 of those die very young. 2 of diphtheria, 1 day apart in 1879, and another of meningitis 2 years later. One child, Charles, was fathered by another man, but was given the Morency name. Esther was a naughty girl. Andrew died at 72 years of age in New Bedford, Massachusetts in 1914, and Mary followed in 1926, aged 83. So lots of interesting information on the little girl who stitched this sampler. Now, the sampler is a limited edition, and there were so many people disappointed with Anne Morrison, so please don't be disappointed this time. The booklet is only available from Janice at Traditional Stitches. There is no PDF, this only is in booklet form. The booklet and all the supplies are available to pre-order now on Traditional Stitches website. You can order the booklet, the threads, the linen, or you can order it in whatever combination that you want, but if you order the full kit, Janice is giving a 15% discount, and that discount will be available up to the 30th of September. If you go on Traditional Stitches website, Janet writes at length at all the different options and the terms and conditions for qualifying for the discount, and when payment is taken for your order. We're hoping to start the stitch along on the 26th of December, which is Hat's birthday. And we always like to do something special on our birthday, so this sort of worked out well. Janice is hoping to start shipping mid-October. Now, if you remember with Anne Morrison, it was a huge logistical operation getting all the supplies out to people around the world. So, Janice can't give a definite date at the moment, but she will start shipping as soon as she can, and expecting that date to be the middle of October. Now, that does sound a long time off, but get your order in now. You do not want to be disappointed. There are people desperately scrabbling for second-hand copies of Anne Morrison now that people are starting to finish their Anne. And it's always so much nicer to have a new booklet that's pristine. Okay, is there anything that else that I can tell you about Esther? Esther was reproduced by Sandra. These are both reproductions by Sandra. Isn't it amazing? Hands Across the Sea Samplers, it was such a good name for us because our needlework, and this is the amazing fact, not the name, but the amazing fact is that we are all needleworkers from all around the world, and we're all connected through our love of needlework. When I was growing up, I never dreamt that I would be chatting to people around the world on an almost daily basis just because of my love of needlework. I've made so many wonderful friends through needlework. I do feel very, very blessed. Okay, so, I almost forgot. We love stitch-alongs so much. We love that sort of companionship and the friendship it brings. So we're always very keen to put something into a stitch-along. And for the Esther Blackwood stitch-along, it's going to be Martha Guthrie. And Martha is a fabulous Scottish sampler, and everybody who finishes Esther Blackwood within the stitch-along period, their name will go into a hat for a draw to win the original Martha Guthrie. Martha is a Scottish sampler. We know so much about her. I have actually reproduced this sampler, and you would have seen me stitching this. I showed lots of sneak peeks. Her booklet is all written. We're just waiting on her to be framed. Our framer has run into problems with frames. Everything is in such short supply in our country. I've been waiting 3 weeks now for the frame to arrive for this little girl. As soon as it does arrive, she will be photographed, and we will be able to release her booklet for you to enjoy. Okay, so the other thing is about Esther. The Anne Morrison stitch-along will just roll over to be the Esther Blackwood stitch-along, and Rose Heck, who is our stitch-along leader for Anne Morrison, has very kindly agreed to lead the SAL forward with Esther Blackwood. We've got so much to look forward to. I hope you're going to join us. Okay, so just a little roundup. Esther, she's exclusive to Traditional Stitches, and her booklet, which is a limited edition and only comes in printed format, is available for pre-order on Traditional Stitches website. Jane Hopkins is available as a printed booklet and as a PDF on the Hats website and from needlework stores around the world. I know that many of you are very, very eager to start stitching Jane. She's just such a beautiful, beautiful sampler. The week ahead, we've got a funeral to go to tomorrow, and it's such a shame in this country, even though you can go to Wimbledon and you can go to the football, at the moment funerals are limited to 30 people. So we're going to go and we're going to line the route to the church. The church where the funeral is actually on the beach at the cove next to ours, and it's the little church that appears in the Poldark series. It's so sad when somebody dies and you can't attend the funeral in the traditional way. We're so close to our lockdown being lifted. From the 19th of July, it looks as if masks won't be compulsory any longer, and we will be able to start to do, everything that we want to do. Ray and I are still going to be sensible. We're going to wear our masks in situations that we feel require them. We're so looking forward to having friends around for supper and just get back to doing normal things. This week just gone, we went to a social event at the golf club. We went and had a meal, and then we had a quiz afterwards. The quizzes are always hotly contested, and we couldn't make up our normal teams. Because of COVID, we could only be teams of 4. And you had to wear your mask in, then you had to sit at the table and you could take your mask off, but you weren't allowed to go around and socialise. We had to keep to our little groups of 4. We didn't do too badly in the quiz. I think we would have done better if we were our usual team, but there we are. It's funny about quizzes. You always remember the questions that you got wrong. And a question that totally stumped us in this particular quiz was, which film did the song Wish Upon a Star appear in? And of course we went off thinking, oh, it'll be like a Bing Crosby film, something like that. But it actually was something very different. Do you know the name of the film that When I Wish Upon a Star appeared in? When they gave out the answers, I was kicking myself. I watched that film so many times. Okay, I'm starting to waffle now, so I'm going to end the video. I hope that you all have a good week and that you stay safe and well. Until next week, bye-bye.